There's something most people don't pay attention to when they buy an old farm. It's not the land, it's not the house. It's the things that are locked. The farm I bought at the beginning of that fall had a barn in the back. It wasn't new, old wood, low roof, a large metal sliding door rusted along the edges. But the thing that caught my attention the very first time I saw it wasn't how old it was. It was how it was locked. The barn door was completely shut, and on the outside, a heavy chain was wrapped tightly around the handles, locked in place. Not the kind of lock meant to keep people out, the kind meant to keep something from getting out. The realtor stood next to me that day, but he didn't walk any closer. He just looked at it from a distance. I asked him, "What's inside?" He shook his head. "Nothing." That answer should have made me feel better, but the way he said it did the opposite. So I asked again, "Then why is it locked?" This time he didn't answer right away. He just kept looking at the barn. Then finally said, "The previous owner did that. He locked it himself before he left." I looked back at the chain. Rust. Old. Not something that had been put there recently. Something that had been there for a long time. "What did he lock inside?" I asked. The realtor didn't answer. Not immediately. He just stared at the barn for a few seconds longer, then said something I still haven't forgotten. He didn't lock something inside. He locked it so he wouldn't have to open it again. We didn't talk about it after that. He showed me the rest of the property, the house, the storage shed, the fence line. But the entire time, I had the same feeling, like something was behind me. Not watching, not moving, just waiting. During my first week on the farm, I didn't go near the barn, didn't touch it, didn't even walk past it unless I had to. There was too much work anyway, fixing doors, cleaning out storage, checking water lines. And I told myself it didn't matter. Just an old structure, empty, useless. Nothing inside, nothing worth thinking about. But on the 7th day, I decided to open it. Not because I needed to, because I couldn't keep pretending it wasn't there. That morning was completely still. No wind, no distant noise. I walked toward the back of the property. The dry grass shifted softly under my boots. The barn stood exactly the same, silent, unmoving. The chain was still there, the lock untouched. I stood in front of it for a few seconds, didn't reach for it, just looked. And I felt something, not fear, something else, like I wasn't supposed to do this. But I did anyway. I unlocked it. The chain fell to the ground with a dull metallic sound, too loud, too sharp, like the place hadn't heard anything in a very long time. I placed my hand on the door and pulled. The metal dragged along the rail, slow, heavy. The darkness inside the barn slowly revealed itself. No light, no movement, just a deep black space. I stood there, didn't step inside, just looked. And then I realized something. It wasn't completely silent inside. There was a sound, very faint, very small, almost nothing. But if you stood still long enough, you could hear it. Knock. I froze, not sure if I actually heard it. Then it came again. Knock. Not from outside, not from the roof, from inside. right behind the door, like something was standing there, knocking. I didn't step inside right away. I just stood there, holding the door open, listening. The sound didn't come again. No second knock, no movement, nothing. The inside of the barn stayed completely still, dark, empty, silent. I told myself I imagined it. Old wood shifting, metal settling, something normal, something explainable. So I stepped inside. The air felt colder, not freezing, just heavier, like it had been sitting there for years without moving. Dust covered everything, the floor, the walls, the old beams overhead. There were no tools, no equipment, no signs that anyone had used this place recently. But there was something else. Marks on the floor. I aimed my flashlight downward. The beam cut across the wood. And that's when I saw them clearly. Long drag marks scraped into the floorboards, running from the center of the barn all the way to the door. Not random, not scattered. Repeated, over and over, as if something had been pulled across the floor, again and again and again. I followed the marks slowly, step by step. They all ended in the same place, right at the entrance, right where I was standing. And then they stopped. No marks leading outside, no continuation, nothing beyond the door, just ending there, like whatever had been dragged never made it out. I turned my light deeper into the barn, looking for anything else, anything that could explain it. That's when I noticed the walls. At first I thought it was just damage, old wood splitting over time. But when I got closer, I realized they weren't cracks. They were scratches. Deep, vertical, uneven. Like something had been trying to climb. I ran my hand along one of them. The wood was rough, fresh in some places. Not all of them were old. Some had been made recently. Very recently. I stepped back slowly, the beam of my flashlight shaking slightly. That's when I heard it again. Knock. I froze. The sound came from behind me, from the door. But I was standing in the doorway. There was nothing behind me, nothing outside. I turned quickly, shined the light toward the entrance. The yard was empty, still, quiet. No one there. But the moment I turned back, the sound came again. Knock. This time from inside. Deeper in the barn. Somewhere past where the light reached. I didn't move, didn't step forward, didn't call out. Just stood there, listening. Then came a second knock, closer. Knock, knock. Slow, even, intentional, like something was testing the distance, figuring out where I was. I took a step back, then another. The moment my foot crossed the threshold, the sound stopped. Completely. No movement, no noise, nothing. I stood outside the barn again, breathing heavier now, trying to make sense of what I had just heard. The door was still open, the darkness inside unchanged. And for a moment, everything was quiet again. Then something shifted, very slightly, right at the edge of the floor, where the light met the dark. One of the drag marks moved. Just a little. Like something unseen had pulled itself forward. And stopped, exactly where the marks ended. Right at the door. I didn't close the door. I should have. But I didn't. I just stood there, staring into the darkness, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing moved. Nothing came out. The barn stayed silent again, like it had decided to stop. Slowly, I stepped back, one step at a time, never taking my eyes off the doorway. Then I turned, walked away, didn't run, didn't rush, but I didn't look back either. The rest of the day felt wrong. Not because anything happened, but because nothing did. No sound from the barn, no movement, no sign that anything had been there at all. By evening, I almost convinced myself it was over. Almost. That night, I locked the house, every door, every window, left the lights off, sat in the living room, listening. The barn was too far to see clearly from the house, just a shape in the dark. And for a while, everything was quiet. Then, knock. I didn't move. Knock. Not from the barn, from outside, closer. I turned my head slowly toward the front door. The sound came again. Knock, knock. Soft. Measured, like someone standing there, waiting. I stayed where I was, didn't get up, didn't answer. The knocking stopped. Silence returned. I told myself it was nothing. Wind, wood, old structure settling. But then, it came again. This time from the back of the house. Knock. I turned, slowly, looking toward the back door. No footsteps, no shadows, no movement. Just that sound. Knock, knock. And then, something worse. A voice. Very quiet, very close. Open. I froze. Didn't breathe, didn't move. Open it. The words weren't loud, not clear, but they were there, and they weren't coming from outside. They were coming from right behind the door, like someone standing inches away, speaking through the wood. I backed away slowly, step by step, trying not to make a sound. The voice stopped. The knocking didn't. Knock, knock. It moved again, from the back door to the wall, then to the window, each time, knock, like something was circling the house, testing every side, looking for a way in. I stood in the center of the room, turning slowly, trying to follow it. It didn't rush, didn't break anything, just moved, patient, careful, until finally it stopped, right at the front door again. Silence. Then one last sound, a single, slow, deliberate knock. Knock. And then, nothing. I didn't sleep that night, didn't move, didn't speak, just waited for it to come back. Morning eventually came. Light filled the room. Everything looked normal again, until I opened the front door and saw the marks on the wood, right at eye level,
4 long scratches, deep, fresh, like something had been standing there, trying to get in. Or trying to remember how.
I didn't stay inside the house after that. Not that morning. Not after seeing those marks on the door. They weren't random. They weren't damage. They were placed, deliberate, at the exact height of a person standing outside. I stepped off the porch slowly, looking around the yard. Everything was still, quiet, normal. The barn stood in the distance, the door still open, exactly the way I had left it. I stared at it for a long time, trying to decide if I should go back. Part of me didn't want to, but another part knew I had to. If I didn't, whatever this was wouldn't stop. So I walked toward it, step by step, across the field. The closer I got, the heavier the air felt, like something was waiting again. Not inside the barn, but around it. When I reached the entrance, I stopped. The door was still open, the darkness inside unchanged. No movement, no sound. But the floor was different. The drag marks. They were no longer ending at the doorway. They continued, out of the barn, across the dirt, toward the house. My chest tightened. I followed them with my eyes. They stretched across the ground, long, uneven. Exactly the same pattern as before. Only now, they didn't stop at the door. They led all the way to the porch, to where I had been standing the night before. I looked back at the barn. The inside was still empty. No one there. Nothing visible. But something had moved. Something had come out. I stepped inside again, slowly, carefully. The air inside felt colder than before, thicker, like the space had changed. I walked to the center of the barn, where the drag marks began. And that's when I saw it. On the floor. A new mark. Different from the others. Not a drag. A shape. Like something had been standing there, still, for a long time. I moved the light across it, and realized what it was. Footprints. Not walking. Not moving. Just standing. Right in the center, facing the door. I slowly turned my head toward the entrance, and for the first time, I understood something. The drag marks weren't random. They all started from that point, from where something had been standing, and each time, it had been pulled back into the barn, again and again, like it had tried to leave, and something had stopped it. But now, there was no sign of that anymore. No marks pulling back, only marks going out. I stood there, in the center of the barn, trying to process it, trying to understand what had changed. Then I heard it. Not from behind me, not from the door, from above. A slow movement, wood creaking softly. I lifted the flashlight.
pointed it toward the upper beams. For a second, I saw nothing. Then something shifted. Just for a moment. A shape, standing on the beam, perfectly still. Too tall, too thin. Watching. And then it was gone. No sound, no movement, like it had never been there at all. I didn't wait to see it again. I backed out of the barn, step by step, then turned and walked away. Because at that point, I already knew. Whatever had been locked inside that barn wasn't trying to get out anymore. It already had. I didn't go back to the barn again after that. Not that day. Not ever. I left the door open. Didn't close it. Didn't lock it. Because at that point, I understood something. The chain had never been there to keep people out. It had been there to keep something in. And now, that didn't matter anymore. That night, I stayed inside the house, lights off, doors locked, windows closed. I didn't sit near the walls, didn't stand near the doors. I stayed in the center of the room, as far away from everything as I could. For a while, nothing happened. No sound from the barn, no movement outside. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels like it's waiting. Then, knock. I didn't move. Knock, knock. The front door. Slow. Deliberate. Like someone standing there, calmly asking to be let in. I stared at the door. Didn't walk toward it. Didn't answer. The knocking stopped. For a few seconds, everything went quiet again. Then it came back, from the side of the house. Knock. Then from the back, knock, knock. Moving, not rushing, just circling, like it was learning the shape of the house, testing every side, looking for the easiest way in. I turned slowly in place, trying to follow the sound. Each time it stopped, it started somewhere else. Door, wall, window. Knock, knock, knock. Always the same rhythm. Slow, even, patient. Then it stopped again, right at the front door. Silence. A long silence. Then, knock. Softer this time. Closer. And then, the voice. Open. I froze. Open the door. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be, because it sounded close. Too close. Like it wasn't outside anymore. I looked at the door, then slowly at the floor. The wood beneath me was still, but something felt wrong. Too quiet, too close. Then, thump, right under my feet. I stumbled back, heart racing. The sound came again. Thump. Not knocking anymore. Something else. Deeper. Heavier. Like something had moved inside. Not outside the house. Inside it. I stepped away from the center of the room, toward the wall. The sound didn't follow. It stayed where I had been standing. Like something had just arrived there and stopped. The knocking at the door was gone. The voice was gone. Only the silence remained. But it wasn't empty anymore. I could feel it. Something inside the house, somewhere behind me, somewhere I couldn't see. I didn't turn around. I didn't check. I didn't need to, because I already knew. The barn had never been the problem. The lock had never been enough. And whatever had been knocking on the door hadn't been asking to come in. It had just been waiting for me to realize it was already inside.